thank you for that. So welcome to HubIT Webinars. That's the second webinar in the series, and we are anticipating 4 webinars until the beginning of February. So thank you for joining. And before going further, I just wanted to give a few words about our HubIT project, what's our aim and what we're working towards in Europe. So the main idea here we're trying to bridge the gap in between the ICT experts and specialists and the representatives of humanitarian and social sciences to develop a more inclusive world and more inclusive technologies and technology applications, which would be more human-centric and so forth. And we are towards this goal doing quite a bit of activities. So these are webinars, workshops, and even we have designed our own approach to hackathon, which we call Designathon, which is by design an inclusive process, both regarding various groups of people covering their gender, specialization, age, and so forth. So we're really trying to bridge the gap in between a very diverse group of players and actors in those fields of technology and human environment, so to say. And we are, as our ultimate goal, of course, is to raise awareness for the benefits and good use of that. Also to help, to figure out ideas for interventions and policy making, how we can change, Europe for better regarding these aspects. As I always have this, I love this anecdote that some big technology companies, say in Silicon Valley, as Yahoo or Google, they love to hire people from social sciences or from humanities in their product creation, because only engineering point of view is fantastic. It helps to make products and things work. But when it comes to this human touch and this sort of collaboration in between the solution and human experience, that doesn't always work very fine. And I believe we all experience that in our daily lives, and most often with banking apps, at least in my case. So that's what we're aiming to and going forwards to. And subsequently, we have a topic for today's webinar. It's on the next generation internet. So what's the concept and what are the opportunities? And indeed, we're looking at the internet, which is more human-centric now, an internet better for humans, creating more value. So that's completely fitting into our profile of HubIT project. So we are very honored and very happy to have you as speakers. It's Robert, Jose, and it's difficult to pronounce for me, Mirko. I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. So these 3 speakers, they will have, so I just started with the background and then continue with the agenda. So Robert is a founder and CEO of Parallel Consulting. He has been closely collaborating with one of the leading EU affairs consultancies, where he worked on research and analysis, and he dealt a lot with the next generation internet. So he's an expert in the topic, and as you'll see in the agenda, he will cover the basic principles in this field. Jose Gonzalez is the founder and CEO of Australa, and as it's being framed, an engineer thinking beyond the lines of code. So we really have somebody, obviously, who bridges the gap in between engineering and human-centered design. And last but not least is Mirko Lawrence, who is an innovation manager and a journalist, so that also really bridges the gap in between different disciplines. And I'm not going to talk to cover a lot of your background, because I believe in the start of the presentations you will be much more precise and much more interesting to talk about your specialties and what you're working on. So I'm keeping this pleasure for you. And agenda-wise, so as I said, first one is general principles about next generation internet by Robert. Then we'll speak on this advanced approach, how can we rethink the digital agenda towards the society by Jose. And the last presentation will be by still difficulty to pronounce, Mirko, sorry for that, on trusted and reliable content on future blockchains. So we'll see some opportunities, what are the challenges, and what could be the solutions, and how can we get to them. And after all those presentations, we can have a Q&A session or a discussion, as well as if somebody has any questions after each presentation, you will be more than welcome to just share your questions or some observations, because I do believe that even our speakers can reflect on those presentations and share some nice points as well. So next is Robert. You can share your screen.
Thank you very much, Justinas, for a kind introduction, and good morning, everyone from Slovakia. I'm Robert Miskup, CEO of Pedal Consulting. Our mission is to help mainly SMEs located in country A to get new contracts in country B. We do it through international grants, tenders, and also access to alternative finance. We are a proud partner of HubIT project and working alongside with Justinas and other consortium partners. And among others, we are also participating in Tetra project, which acts as a business incubator to projects that are funded by NGI initiative. So I must make a confession in the beginning. I do not consider myself an expert in NGI, Next Generation Internet. I would definitely have quite insights into what it is, and I would like to, during my intervention today, just give you a quick snapshot, introductory walk through what the NGI is, what is this initiative about, and what challenges it aims to crack. So I'll try to share my presentation, and while doing it, I think I will probably switch off my camera because the internet where I'm right now at home is not very strong. So let me see if it's going to work. Justinas, is it all good on your end?
Yeah, you have shared your screen. Just please make it a full screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
There we go. Okay, so maybe as a starter, I'd like to make it clear that internet, as we know it today, was really not designed for the things it does today, and it is not, or it is far from being future-proof as it is today. So undoubtedly, internet changed work and also consumption behaviors of all of us, including the next generation, which is now taking arguably the power, which are in millennials. Internet and the new technologies in general are now truly integrated to our everyday lives. Just think of Uber, for example. Now, people often don't understand technology, but they still want internet to be open, available at all times, and also safe, and make sure that the information they put there is protected. Now, US shows the course of internet and technological innovation. From a European point of view, there is a worrying thing, which is the lack of successful internet companies. And of course, this is up to discussion, but we're coming from the indicator of the state of the European tech, which also gives an evidence of the ability, or rather the lack of the EU to adapt to and thrive in the world influenced so profoundly by the rise of the internet and digital technology. So we also have another challenges, such as systems failing due to cyber attacks. We know that European industry is threatened by espionage. Politicians, scientists, but also us parents are relatively vulnerable. They can be easily profiled. Nowadays, quote unquote monopolies like Facebook, owning also Instagram, WhatsApp, that millions of people literally use on everyday basis, it is known that it is not safe, and still, many are using it. There are many known issues around it, and this just has to be recognized. Of course, that trust on the internet, but also outside of internet, doesn't come free. It certainly requires time and resources, and internet has to be built from the ground up if needed. Some backend technologies that users don't know are there, and certainly many challenges can be solved, but they also require legal and also governmental changes or intervention at high level policy. So the situation won't fix itself alone, and this is why NGI, Next Generation Internet, was born based on quite profound research and investment and a lot of effort. So the NGI initiative, now probably I will start moving to the next slide, wants to support the creation of an internet where, or the internet that supersedes the current internet, internet which supports citizens and businesses in order to push further the frontiers of technology. And this internet should also retain people's trust in the online environment at a broad level, as well as their internet engagement, which is more human-centric and which offers the same fair opportunities to everyone. So what you see here is a structure I took from the NGI website, and it depicts somehow 5 pillars of NGI, 5 principles among which, based on which the NGI is being built. So we have sustainability, trust, resilience, decentralization, and inclusion. So EC, I will just maybe say a few words here. EC definitely wants to shape the future internet in a way that it embodies European values. Everyone wants internet to be open, but still, protect we want to protect our privacy. And without a doubt, future internet, that's the idea, that's the ultimate goal, has to be human-centric. It has to be in hands of humans. This means that it has to make our life easier, but we need that advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are doing that. Yes, and the internet again can't go on as it is today, simply because human behavior has drastically changed over the past years. So we use technology for everything. We have to reinvent it in such a way that it could be used better, protecting our freedom of speech, privacy, and also from possible attacks. Right. So just some keywords or key bullet points on what these 5 terms actually, these 5 principles actually mean. So when we zoom into the trust, which is on the right side of the slide, we need to make sure that, as I mentioned, that users, us, are controlling the data. We also have to make sure that authentication and online identity is addressed appropriately. Integrity and traceability of information is a must. Again, human control, and again, internet is definitely an opportunity to restore public trust, and also well-informed debate and multisectoral collaboration. Now, let's dive into resilience, what that means. Internet has to be secure and resilient infrastructure. Also, artificial intelligence, which is now spelled out in every second sentence that comes out from politicians, but also businesses. We need to make sure that AI potential is creating resilient financial systems, and that also we need to ensure the secure long-term storage of critical data. Inclusion. Of course, the internet has to be, this comes from deep European values. It needs to be accessible to all. It needs to be transparent with the language that we're using. We need to make sure that devices and machines understand various languages. Universal access to knowledge has to be secured alongside with openly shared and available information. Diversity is an important element here, and also every citizen has to interact and take part in online society. We really need to make sure that internet is inclusive, and that's why it is a really prominent pillar of NGI. We also have decentralization, peer-to-peer transactions using distributed ledger technologies. Also, blockchain is certainly on the radar, and better experience of democracy and sharing economy. Last is the sustainability. Nowadays, anything that we create, produce, consume, the goal is to make sure that it is as sustainable as possible from the eco-friendly point of view. So the data centers and data storages need to be eco-friendly. The reduction of carbon footprint plays a big role, and with the ICT proliferation, green ICT also became an explicit requirement for future ICT developments. European Commission is investing a great deal into NGI. I apologize if some of the projects are not listed here. I tried to, I really did my homework, but could be that some projects that have been funded recently that are not appearing on this slide. But essentially, there are two families of projects that the NGI initiative is currently funding. The first one is coordination and support actions, and as I mentioned before, PEDAL is partnering in Tetra project, the objective of which is to speed up the path of other projects towards market, making sure that they reach market as soon as possible and that they become successful players on the market. And apart from coordination support actions, there is a lot of research and innovation taking place at the moment, and you will see the projects which are addressing these issues on the right in the right column of the slide. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to present during my intervention. These are my details. Feel free to reach out to me. As a signal to Justinas, I will have to leave at 11. In case you have any questions, I guess we can have a quick Q&A now, or perhaps let's see how the timing goes. We will be able to so have a chat after or towards the end of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. So if I may, I would like to have a very short question on mine. So a while ago, we were all advised when browsing internet, when we looked at the link to look for this HTTPS, this format, right? So in essence, this NGI could be also a format in a website link as a seal of some regulation and quality, right? That we have to look for to trust about our data secure, to trust about the information provision and so forth. Is it kind of that idea? Because how can user be aware whether the website is based on NGI regulations if they would kick in, as a legal framework at some point, versus whether the website is, say, hosted in some non-European country and could be whatever?
Very good question, Justinas. I will answer not from the expert point of view, because really I'm not a technical guy, but I will answer as from my common sense perspective as a user of internet. So absolutely, as soon as I want to land on any website that I Google or type up, I would like to be informed since the very beginning, if this website is secure, and at least to know where the data is being stored in very ideally harmonized way. So this is my wish. My wish. I'm not alone. This is somehow already established or recognized challenge that researchers, but also policymakers in the framework perhaps also NGI projects are trying to solve. So if you're asking me as a citizen, I would definitely like to have, let's say, by default information every time I land on any website, that this information is secure. It has some sort of a label, or currently we know that there are certificates, but I would like to go slightly beyond that. Knowing also, where the data is it leaving Europe? We know that Gdpr is not applicable, in such a big extent in outside European Union. This is certainly I would say already established a challenge, and I'm looking forward to how researchers and policymakers and also industry collaborate on it in order to give us a user-friendly result and highly trusted result at the end of their collaboration.
Thank you. Yeah. So throughout your presentation, I had this feeling, this technical implementation of security, privacy, and so forth, versus content control, right? As we lately had some examples in the US when certain content stirred violence. At the end of the day, the content sources were banned, but in a way, we can remember the Arab Spring, where the uprising was triggered on social media as well. Some activities were going on from that kind of source. So I was wondering, how would NGI standards react to such circumstances? Because we have the same tool, and we just have different parties doing similar thing in a way. Just rallying their supporters to certain action. And in one case, and there's two very different cases. One were pro-democratic but stirring violence, other were anti-democratic and stirring violence. So how can you weigh those and filter?
I fear I do not have an answer to this because it's a very complex question, at least to me. But if other participants have opinion on this, please feel free to speak up.
Yeah, I would like to say something about this because, again, we don't really need to see NGI as a proper standard. And NGI is a digital agenda that the Commission has defined to try to steer, like Robert has mentioned, and try to steer fairness, openness, and also trustworthiness on the new emerging technologies. So what you're talking about is about misinformation, which I believe Mirko will tell us a little bit about it in a second. So the thing here, I believe, is that we need to really fight misinformation. So we don't really need to pick up sides. We don't need to pick up either this is a Republican and this is not wrong, or this is right if it's democratic somehow. But we need to really fight misinformation. And for instance, projects that will be funded under Trueblue. Again, I don't want to kill the mood because Mirko will tell us about it. Is somehow projects that under the NGI umbrella, like I said, NGI is not per se standard, but it's trying to support and fund projects that actually are trying to cover those principles. Somehow they will try to find solutions to that issue. So again, I'm sure that Mirko will tell us more about it in a moment. But like I said, we really need to fight misinformation rather than how we can pick up sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Are there any more quick questions for Robert as he's leaving in half an hour or so? So just last chance. Well, if not, we can move forward. So thank you, Robert. Very exciting presentation. Now we can delve even deeper into the topic with Jose's presentation on the Internet of Humans. So let's see how it goes.
Can you just to make sure, can you see the screen?
We can see a screen. Thank you.
Perfect. So good morning, everyone. I already speak myself up. My name is Jose Gonzalez. Thank you, Justinas, for the invitation to this webinar. My presentation today is going to be trying to how we have seen so far of the next generation internet, who has been presented by Robert, and how we can link this up with the European Commission digital agenda somehow. Like I said a few seconds ago, next generation internet is per se is not a standard. It's more like a principles that the Commission wants to promote in order to make Europe a global leader in emerging technology, in a trustworthy emerging technology somehow, no? Because again, I mean, we have the United States and we have China as a, United States is the global leader in technology, and China is the rising, somehow the rising country that will be somehow, especially in artificial intelligence, will be imposing the new technology. So Europe must need to find its place in this ecosystem. So the idea is how the Commission wants to position Europe in this scenario. No? So the idea for this presentation is going to give you some sort of a high-level idea on what the next generation internet role has been playing so far. No? Just for your information, today I'm representing a couple of NGI projects. NGI, for those of you probably who are not familiar with this, stands for Next Generation Internet. No? So I'm representing Think Nexus and NGI Explorers. I will briefly present them later on in the presentation. So, but just for you to know that I've been involved in this field for the last 3 years. So I try to share with you, which is somehow my knowledge. So before we step into the next generation internet per se, let me just try to set up the scene somehow. No? So back in February 2020, the European Commission, especially the new president, Ursula von der Leyen, set up this Shaping Europe's Digital Future, which is nothing less than which are the priorities and actions of the European Commission in the digital agenda for the next 5 years. So it's this master plan that the Commission wants to follow in the next, from 2020 to 2025 somehow. It's a really short document because somehow it highlights the high-level priorities and action plans that the Commission wants to follow up in this years to come. But again, I mean, the objective here, if we start, and I believe that's the rationale also from the webinars for today, is how we can make up that every citizen and every business, because here we also need to keep in consideration the businesses and SMEs, how we can make every citizen and business to really reap the benefits of the digitization somehow, no? Because right now, Europe is lagging behind a little bit when it comes to benefiting from all the power of digital transformation and the data economy. So the idea is how, like I said before, how Europe can position itself in this global market somehow, this global digital market. No? So I'm sure the slides will be shared later on. I left there and right here, I left here the link to this agenda. So in case you are interested, you can always look for that. No? So this agenda is pretty much built up in 4 main pillars. No? The first one, it's a little bit, is how technology can work for the people. No? It's somehow what this means is that how we can make that emerging technology, such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, not that so emerging technology, but I mean, big data and cloud computing. I mean, all this cluster related to emerging technology can be more accessible and transported to everyone somehow, to the citizens, but also to the companies. Because I mean, big tech industry players are really make use of this technology, but in most cases, the society, but also SMEs and startups, they cannot really get most of this technology. So we need to, the plan for the Commission is how we can define an agenda to make this technology closer to the end user somehow. No? And some of the stuff that we can see in this screenshot has been already mentioned by Robert. No? Is how we can provide better medical diagnosis and treatment, stronger digital skills, trusted digital identity. So there are a number of pointers here that give us what the Commission means for this technology that works for the people. No? But I would like to focus on 3 of them. No? One important aspect is the artificial intelligence, no? Because right now the artificial intelligence will shape somehow the years to come. It's already doing that. I mean, we will see that in a second, but artificial intelligence is already defining how the future of work will be shaped in the next 5 years. It's already somehow, we can see how some jobs and some skills are being replaced by bots and by artificial intelligence algorithms that, I mean, skills and actions that we've been doing by humans. So we need to make sure that all this labor is not wasted but transformed. So we need to really make sure that we define a proper digital education plan for these people, but also we need to make sure that artificial intelligence is we need to make this a little bit more trustworthy and closer to the end users, to let them know that this is not Skynet from Terminator that is going to kill us all, but it's really a tool that will, I mean, use that in the proper ways and use that throughout proper guidelines will really help us to thrive somehow. No? But also, I mean, this pillar tries to cover how we should really define a better role for women, no? How we can empower women, not only in STEM, but also in entrepreneurship. No? So it's a matter of how we can bring these emerging technologies closer to the end users that are right now a little bit lagging behind. No? Second pillar tries to focus on how we can make sure that the digital economy is fair and competitive, no? And somehow the whole point here for the Commission is how we can accelerate the capacity of the data economy in Europe somehow, no? So the objective here is to go from the 300 billion euros that represents the value of the data economy from 2018 to the objective in 2025, which represents 830 billion euros. So the Commission really wants to finally close the loop with the digital single market and try to make sure that the digital economy based on data is fully exploited. No? And for that, in these guidelines, the Commission has defined some major points, no, in this data strategy. Like I said, I mean, the competitiveness of SMEs is really important. I mean, most of the SMEs are using partially the benefits that data and data capacities can be offered, but not at a full scale. So we need to really define a proper strategy for them to really understand the power of data and how we can use that data across Europe, no? Because most of the companies are located in a single country, and this digital single market that the Commission wants to define is not properly in place, no? So for that, I mean, the Commission wants to define guidelines on how this data sharing between business to business can be increased. Also, part of the rationale, as you probably know already, is the Gdpr, how we can protect data not only for the end users, but also for the businesses. So, I mean, there will be a new version for the GDPR, which, by the way, if you're not aware of this, the United States is already replicating this model. I mean, California, which is the hometown of Silicon Valley and rich startup ecosystem, is already implementing their own version of the GDPR. So in that particular case, the Commission is already, I mean, Europe is already defining the strategy to go. So, and this is also related to what is going to become the Digital Service Act, which is somehow how we can assign responsibilities to how we can assign liability to the platform. We cannot really, Twitter cannot just lay down and say, look, I mean, Trump has Twitter about this, and we don't have any kind of responsibility for that. This has to change. Platforms has to undertake liability on the actions and the content that are beneath them. So somehow the Commission will try to define this, the Digital Services Act, that somehow will make sure to get more out of the platforms and not just chase the individuals posting the content somehow. Third pillar, that it's a little bit the one that it's a little more linked to discussion for today, is how we can make a more, open, democratic, and sustainable society. And here I would like to highlight a couple of items. The first one, probably you have already heard of this. This is the European Green Deal. We tries to focus on 3 dimensions of sustainability somehow. It's like how we can make sure that the sustainability involves climate or environmental aspects, but also taking in consideration economic and social, no? How we can make sure that the transition to a more sustainable economy takes in consideration the health of the citizens, no? So I'm sure that some of you may be aware of this, and now the Commission is now at the end of this month, the Commission is going to closing a huge open call for this European Green Deal, and this will come this will follow in the next framework program in Horizon Europe. No? And the other second pillar, sub-pillar that I wanted to highlight is obviously the next generation internet. No? Like Robert has mentioned, is how we can really it's the agenda of how we can make sure that the internet can be accommodated to the new needs or the new realities of the society. No? So let me go and try to go a little bit more into the details of the next generation internet, and try to not repeat what Robert has already introduced to you all, but there may be some overlap in any ways. No? So like I said, I mean, the next generation internet is, okay, the internet and data are somehow the engine of the digital economy today. No? So this is really transforming the way that the world's economy are taking somehow shape. No? I mean, we cannot really think of e-commerce without thinking of the internet and the data somehow, no? And also social media, no? But I mean, we cannot really keep seeing technologies as a standalone, bundle. I mean, right now there is a digital continuum somehow that takes in consideration all the technologies that somehow has the data at the core somehow. No, we cannot really detach 5G networks from IoT and from cloud computing, because at the end they all try to merge somehow in the digital continuum. No, because the data is somehow the fuel that is beneath all of them. No, of course, I mean, each one of them is trying to target in different aspects, no, of the solutions. But like I said, I mean, 5G cannot really be decoupled today from the virtual networks and the virtual computing somehow. No? So we need to really see, if we are talking about the digital agenda, we need to really see and we really need to understand this as a digital continuum. No? So if this is a continuum of, like I said, artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, IoT, 5G, cybersecurity, and cloud and edge computing, we need to somehow reimagine the future of the internet, no? This future of the data economy. No? So again, I mean, like Robert has already introduced, I mean, this was an initiative from the European Commission that started in 2016 and has been funding several projects ever since. No, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's not a standard, it's somehow like a framework where startups, SMEs, researchers can really get access to funding to really go on with their ideas and go on with these projects that somehow fit into the values that we have seen, no? Which are, like I said, I mean, privacy, openness, trustworthiness, and fairness. So let me just give you an example that I often use. No, it's the two sides of the same coin. No, and let's pick up Facebook. Not because I'm against Facebook at all. I mean, I have my own account because I think it really fits into the example. No, Facebook, since its inception, it was a really and it still is a really nice platform that serves for companies to promote themselves. I mean, to get traction from customers, especially end users, citizens, to really socialize with each other. I mean, having a friend that is on the other side of the world and you can still chat in. I think this is amazing, no? And it's amazing, has bring a lot of benefits to the society as it is, no? But on the other side, it also implies really perversive things, no? If they are not used in the proper way, no? So just to give you three main cases, no? Social media, in particular Facebook, is really affecting the self-esteem of the teenagers. So just to give you a couple of numbers, I mean, depression, according to some studies from between 2009 and 2017, has increased 60%, 60% between people ranged age between 14 and 17. I mean, this is not nothing out of the blue. I mean, this comes with the impact of the social media among these the youngers, no, because they haven't really developed fully their personality. So all kinds of comments and even bullying can affect them somehow, and this can create, you know, mental issues somehow. And even more, I mean, and I don't want to be super dramatic here, but I mean, the facts are there. I mean, teen suicide between 2007 and 2016 has increased 56%, when it has been dropping up before 2007 to the lowest minimum in history. No? So between 2007 and 2016, it has increased 56%, no, among the teenagers. So it's which somehow it correlates with the emergence of Facebook. No? So it has an implication as well for the teenagers. No? Another point that I wanted to highlight is, okay, often we say, I mean, digital services like Facebook are free. So we are really, I mean, we can see this, this is free, but this is not the truth. I mean, we are the product, no? and these platforms are usually making money out of the data that are collecting from us. So I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying that we need to be aware of this. And part of the Gdpr is trying to, I mean, the Commission is trying to make aware of the citizens that this is a reality, and we need to pay attention to that, no? Because, and this links to the third point. I mean, it's not that you can say, I mean, I don't have anything to hide, or I don't have anything that I mean, they can take my data away, but this has an implication, because all these platforms are actually using your data and try to put that in packages for AI algorithms to try to manipulate. And this is a reality. No? And this somehow leads to misinformation, that we will be seeing this later on with America. Even political decisions. No, we have seen this assault to the Congress last week. No, I mean, how Twitter and Facebook are platforms that, if not taken in the proper hands, can be really upscale in dramatic consequences. No? And I mean, I don't know if you have seen this, but this is a really nice documentary. I mean, I strongly advise you to take a look at it, because it's really nice. It's called The Social Dilemma. And you may not trust what I'm saying, but in this documentary, pretty much the main chief operating and super top guys beneath Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and so on and so forth are talking about these issues. No, so the insiders are really talking about what's going on and which are the consequences for this, for not really taking in consideration this. No? Okay, so just to try to close with this loop, I mean, now I would like to talk about the fourth pillar, which is a little more linked to my experience in these 3 years. It's about how Europe can place itself as a global player. No, like I said in the beginning, we are trying to compete with the United States and emerging countries like China somehow. No? So we need to understand which is the role that we need to play, or Europe needs to play in this scenario. No? And for that, the Commission sponsor both projects Thin Nexus and NGA Explorers as a way to try to cooperate in a closer way with the United States. No? Because we understand the United States, besides the Trump administration, it's an ally in this strategy, and they really share values, that the values that we have seen in the past. No, it's a little bit unlike China, which is a little more restrictive, and they want to really control the citizens. No, I mean, the United States, in that sense, they can represent a huge ally, and this is why the Commission sponsor Thin Nexus and NGA Explorer. So let me just briefly explain to you what is beneath this project. No, Thin Nexus is pretty much a project that tries to, like I said, I mean, all what I've been telling you about is trying to define which are the strategies that the Commission needs to focus on. No? And like I said, I mean, we already mentioned how we need to empower women in tech. So in this project, we have been releasing policy briefs, white papers, trying to advise the Commission which are the ways they need to really focus on in the next framework program in Horizon Europe. How the NGI, the next generation has internet has to evolve. So I mean, I won't go much into details because it's a little what I have been telling you about all along. I just leave you here a couple of links. Well, sure, it's when I didn't have to. But today I would like to talk to you about NGI Explorers because it's where we have an opportunity and you may be interested. NGI Explorers is nothing else than a mobility program for immersions in the United States. So we have been supporting researchers and entrepreneurs to have an immersive experience in the United States, to understand and work hand in hand with local partners in the States, mostly universities. So the idea is that we are going to sponsor 3 or 5 months expeditions to the United States. All is paid by the European Commission through the program. So pretty much we are selecting the best candidates and we are somehow granting them the funding to go there. And of course, I mean, we are also offering this mentorship program. Just for your information for this, I mean, right now we are running the third open call. Right now we are selecting, we have this call for proposals where researchers and entrepreneurs can apply to. And just for your information, you can always bring your own American partner that you want to work with. But like I said, I mean, the idea is to really facilitate a network of different institutions in case you don't know anyone in the States. So these are the American partners that is working with us in this third open call. So in case you are interested to work with any of them, you can apply with your idea and try to work with them. Like I said, I mean, we are trying to find top researchers and innovators. I mean, a little more from the academic point of view, which are a little bit more focused on apply research and advancement of the internet technology. Maybe in 3 months or 5 months, it will give you the opportunity to publish your outcomes along with the American partners. Or maybe if you are a little bit more in a business side, I mean, you can actually try to develop further your business idea. Here, some high-level information. Like I said, I mean, the call for proposals is already available. I mean, this is the third one and the last one because we have been already running 2 previous ones. So this is the last chance for participating. And deadline is until the end, 18th of February. So you still have plenty of time. I have left here the guidelines. And also, if you are interested to understand who were the previous explorers, as we call them, you can also, I have left here a couple of links, but I mean, all the information is in the website. And if you scan also the code, it will take you there. So this is pretty much the high level idea on the next generation internet and how this is linked to the main strategy, especially for the European Commission and where we are somehow heading to. So I tried to mix up between what Robert already introduced and also with some high-level understanding, and also try to also share with you this opportunity for NGI Explorers because, like I said, I mean, it's a really interesting and really practical way for working hand in hand with American partners. So, Justinas, I don't know. Perhaps, I mean, I'm available, so I can wait for the end of the time slot for the Q&A, or if you want to take some now, that's fine as well.
I think we can have some quick reflections here. So thank you for saying it was a very good presentation in my opinion. It's also very good to know sequence from starting with the idea by Robert, what is NGI, and now we are seeing this whole European ambition, and it's quite a bit, and there's lots of benefits for citizens, for businesses, and so forth. And of course, we have to withstand the global competition here, which I believe is the biggest challenge. Maybe even a bigger challenge than persuading people that it's safe and it's exciting to use the technology. So let's see how it goes. And before we go into more operational applications to NGI in the next presentation, I just would love to have a quick glimpse to a comment that we had in the chat box by Hayden. And if Hayden wouldn't, maybe Hayden would be kind enough just to turn on his microphone and share his ideas on the technology radar, how he could see the connections in between NGI activities and this initiative.
Hi there. Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for organising this meeting. It's very, very interesting for me to listen to these. And you've been talking about topics which I find very interesting, particularly things like trust, as we move towards an economy which is very much driven by data. And we've been creating a technology radar for the European Commission for the SAE community as part of this digital transformation. And in this, we've covered an awful lot of technologies, but one thing which is clear, we're going all the way down from the semiconductor technologies all the way up to providing full applications of Internet of Things and cyber physical systems and sort of autonomous cars and all of these sorts of things. One of the things which is clearing this is that there's lots of technologies there, but actually a lot of this is driven by the data economy. And we're seeing lots of services being developed around many of these things. So these issues which you talk about privacy and trying to provide a European style of internet rather than being driven by what we get from the US, I think is very important. And it's very nice to see these things. And one of the things we've tried to do with the radar is not only capture the underlying technologies, so we cover things like edge computing, which of course is very important for the future. And we want to see whether we can make advances there, because there's lots of things which are huge advantages from moving from the cloud to the edge in terms of privacy and things like that. But also it's important for us to think about where we're going to go in the future with these technologies. And in that perspective, we're looking at the opportunities in particular for SMEs to take on board these technologies. So we find a lot of things going on in the smart agricultural domain, for instance, where the farmers in particular are very worried about the privacy of the data. So people are already collecting data from farm machinery, but the farmers don't get access to it. So there's all sorts of interesting things going on already in these communities, but there's lots of opportunities to create new businesses and new businesses around the data on this. And what we've been trying to do is also capture the application sectors as well. And in the application sectors, we've covered things like smart agriculture, we've covered things like food economy. We're even looking at smart entertainment for the future as well. This is something which has come out of, people are very interested in this from the point of view of the lockdowns that everyone is busy watching Netflix and various other things. And so the entertainment industry has suddenly become very important as well. Things like Zoom, of course, which is something which is taken over our world these days. So we're trying to capture all of these different changes, but also what are the implications of some of these things? And in particular, what are the things which the SMEs or new industries that are moving into these need to look out for? And these are exactly the things you're discussing today. So I'm very keen to try and capture some of these things on the radar.
Thank you, Hayden. And I just wanted to really quickly reflect on what you have said with a short story. So clearly NGI and even GDPR, these are two initiatives we can name currently very easily that European Union, has introduced a global standard for, and now other countries are following. In GDPR, we have UK following that. USA is looking at similar rules. When it comes to NGI, I believe it will become more and more a mainstream thing as well. And I had a story about, maybe you still remember this project by Elon Musk called Hyperloop. So we wanted to first build that in Europe, because if Europe accepts that is safe and good enough, so now that would suit the rest of the world. If Europeans take it as we're being the most risk averse and careful. So now Europe is really the standard. And it's very exciting that Europe is still, pushing the envelope and figuring and looking for new.
I just want to say something that I forgot to mention in my presentation. It's about in this relationship between the Europe and the States. Even if the United States is somehow, we can say that, the global leader for developing technology, Europe is the major client somehow. So most of these technologies are sold to Europe, no? But on the other side, the European Commission is the global regulator. So they really, Europe has this role of regulating the way that, like I said, you just mentioned Gdpr, no? So more and more Europe is finding their role in this global marketplace as the regulator that somehow is taking shape and taking the evolution of this technology, even if we are not developing technology per se, but somehow we are influencing the way the technology is being developed. because like I said, I mean, we are the major customer from the States, no? So just wanted to share that also that pointer with you all, because we often say that we often think that the United States is somehow the global leader, but without Europe they won't be really having that position. No? And we really do have a power of influence, and we need to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, no, I believe the United States dominates in the cloud computing area. However, the future is really edge computing. And that is really an interesting area because Europe is actually extremely strong in this area and has the capability to be dominant in this area. So I think that's very good news for Europe. So I think there are plenty of opportunities here. And also there's lots of very active SMEs across Europe with very bright ideas. And so it's good to see that. Interestingly, Hyperloop is on the technology radar. So it is on there already.
I just, one more short story. I remember I used to have lots of contacts with the DJ RTD. So they always were saying that, you know, when it comes to R&D, Europe is very strong on the R part. So we do very good research, but the US takes over development, you know, so they do the products of the knowledge we generate. So that's
yeah. And this is very true. I'm involved in many discussions with the European Commission, and one of the interesting areas is that we are very good at coming up with ideas. The problem is getting the venture funding for the first stage, but actually it's more the growth stage, which is a big issue. I've been in meetings with the European Investment Bank to try and work out how we can come up with new strategies to provide that growth funding, because you tend to find that a company goes through the early risk phases, and then you go to the second phase where you really want to grow the company. And at that phase, it's when you get the investors coming in from Japan, from China, from the US, who take over, and they get the de-risked product effectively, and then take it to the next level. So there is interest in trying to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. And of course, with the new strategic autonomy, which you probably heard about, being talked about, this is very important, which is why we are very keen to make sure that Europe has strategic autonomy in quite a few areas, such as aerospace, automotive, and things like that.
Yeah, and even I like your idea that it's hard to scale in Europe if you have a new product, and indeed, you know, we don't have this homogeneous base of clients, so to say, right? So
that is a huge challenge. This is why regulation standardization is so important, which again is a key activity of the European Commission. Although the European Commission doesn't promote standardization, but it does actually encourage the different standard bodies to work together. And indeed, I've been leading that area in an initiative a couple of years ago. So hopefully we will get more organized between the different standards communities.
Hopefully so, and hopefully the users will get this, you know, more homogeneous as well, because now some nations are, so to say, you know, are quicker to adopt technology, some are a bit slower, and also know that makes the market a bit more difficult for our startups and for scale-ups. So US is more favorable regarding that aspect. But over time, I do believe, you know, we'll get very well regarding this thing, because there's so much effort being put there. So thank you, Hayden, and thank you all. So we can, I guess, go to the next presentation by Mirka on operational, you know, how can we make this NGI fair and without fake news and other exciting things. So let's see what you have there.
Okay, so I take over. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for these discussion contributions. I think working together with European values has quite a bit of potential. But now let's discuss what challenges we have to overcome based on one very specific example, that is trust. 1 second, I need to. Zoom is lying over my presentation. So I assume that you are seeing my presentation full screen now. So the next 10 to 15 minutes will be about trusted and reliable content on future blockchains. That is actually the name and the goal of TrueBlow, our most recent project that we are involved in. It's an NGI project. So we are aiming together with all the other projects I must admit that has not started to the extent we would like to have it at. So this is the structure. I will give a short intro, then talk about Trublo and misinformation, and touch some of the challenges we are facing in order to move to trusted content and even distributed trust, which is hopefully becoming possible using blockchain. Very briefly about me, it was mentioned, it is true, I started as a journalist and then I studied economics and history. So I am a student of business models to some extent. And I'm working with Deutsche Welle since 2008. And additionally, I'm a co-founder and now chairman after 10 years as a CEO of a European startup called Data where we help media organizations to do charts and maps and tables. And I'm happy to report that this is actually an international business by now. And there are lots of clients in the US using this software. So I'm mentioning that because it is important that we share our specific experiences with this generation and the next generation of founders in order to establish such models. So a little bit of background here as well. At Deutsche Welle, we are calling ourselves the Research and Cooperation Project Team. We are by now more than 20 media research and technology specialists. We are a very stable team. And what we are trying, based on EU research participation and other sources of funding, is to move ideas to initial stages of usability, like minimal viable products, and at best, even beyond that point. And in some of our approaches, that has worked quite well. I will mention later a platform called Truly Media, which we developed with partners from other European countries, which is now in low-level commercial use. It's used by media companies, by Amnesty International and the European Parliament. It's a collaborative platform for verification. And that's what we're after. We explore these technologies in order to move them to a level where they can be, where they are ready for investments and sustainable development. Now, briefly about Trublo, I mentioned it's an NGI project. Just started in September 2020, and it's one of the first ones among this new approach called Cascade Funding. I'm well aware that many of you will know that, but I mention how it works. The idea is that most of the funding from a smaller consortium will be given onwards to small teams to have initial funding, like to the tune of 80 to 150,000 euros, so that it's not a world of money like for commercial development. But the idea is that we kind of nurture early teams, early ideas. And I think that's a worthwhile approach. It has its own risks, that is for sure. We will see the dynamics of how to make that sustainable in the future. Our first open call, one of three, will be opening next Monday. So I'm very happy to be here today and talk to people who might be interested. Now, let's move over a little bit to what we're here for. Well, it was mentioned already. The status of information exchange is under siege. There are multiple problems from the current models, from all the like buttons that have no real dislike buttons or maybe buttons. It's all driven forward by certain business models, maybe, and that's one of my beliefs. It's very much of a monoculture that we're seeing right now. We should explore more models beyond that. But what it leads to is different levels of information disorder. Let me very briefly mention, in the context of Deutsche Welle and journalism, we try to walk away from using the term fake news. Not because it's simply because it's a label that has been put in general on all kinds of news sources. It's just there to discredit and to make it more complicated to interact and discuss with each other. So what we're talking about is usually mis and disinformation. even up to the point of concerted efforts for malinformation. And on the left, you see a visual that I like a lot because it helps a lot of people to understand what we're talking about. It's from a 2017 study by Claire Wardle and Hussein Darekshan for the Council of Europe. I reread it recently for the communication efforts at Trublo, and I can recommend it. The link is here on the bottom. And I think the presentation will be shared, so look out for that one. It's a very good read, and it has 37 recommendations of what could be done to curb these kinds of information disorder. But of course, there's actual work behind that. One of the stages that is being done and has flourished in recent years because of the need to do that is verification groups. One that should be mentioned is a European group that started out as a volunteer group. It's called Bellingcat. I think they are one of the leaders of forensics and investigation into using internet media in order to understand what's going on. I think in a lot of cases I've seen they do a marvelous work of really putting together the puzzle piece of how things are working. And we need to look at their examples and their work in order to understand better what's going on with mis and disinformation. Then on the right, that is the screenshot of the Truly Media homepage, which was developed in part by Deutsche Welle and is operated still towards sustainability. The idea of Truly is a collaborative platform. It looks like TweetDeck, and it enables larger groups of people working together so that when one information has been verified as wrong or false, it is easier to be communicated through a whole newsroom, through a whole organization. That's the idea of it. Now, moving on a little bit into the intricacies of trusted content. Here are two examples how a European media organization wants to help with doing a better job. They are labeling content that is by now very old or like 3 years old, so not reporting on an actual situation in order to avoid that people are reposting it in the context of a current situation and mixing things up. For example, here, why did the election pollsters get it so wrong? It is labeled both in the article. This article is more than 3 years old, which you can see on the right, but through the same thing they do for social media posts, so that they say it's from 2015. It's more than 5 years old by now. So these are early efforts of enriching content to provide more context. Maybe that's a good summarization of what they're trying to do here. Then another interesting project is from the New York Times together with IBM. It's called the News Provenance Project. They too try to add layers of additional information, like that you are able to click on a second level for a photo to understand when it was taken, under what circumstances it was taken, so that it cannot be used out of context. Using elements of news media out of context is one of the strategies of mis and disinformation. And we've seen so many examples of it. The challenge there is, of course, that besides technical aspects, there's a psychology surrounding. We as humans, and that includes you and me, we jump for the outrageous. We are interested in the things that are out of the norm. We look at it. We try to understand whether it's coming closer to us, yes or no. And that is why we are so susceptible to certain of these strategies. Now, we can go, of course, a level deeper. And here are two examples, which we researched in the project that we did before Trublo, which was called Bloman, which was another blockchain-based project looking into better management of media assets. One is called Tupic. It's a US-based company. They have a software which was initially kind of for a business model for, say, insurances, to make sure that the photo was actually taken when and where it claims it was taken. And by now, in 2020, they managed to get this software included in the next generation of Qualcomm chips. Qualcomm Snapdragon chips are used for Android telephones. So there will be an option of software kind of hard-coded to the camera to label photos in a trustable way using blockchain. So there would then, if that is coming into the market, be labels like a C for certified. And the idea is that this way there are certain information baked into the photo which cannot be easily altered. So if that would spread to a certain level, falsified information could be much easier sorted out, filtered out, even before we get to see it. I want to mention, I must say, I'm not to the same level familiar with where they are standing right now. I looked at them 1.5 years ago. The second company called Cerulay. And there are multiple others. What needs to be said, there was a big hype about blockchain-based projects beyond cryptocurrencies in 2017, but a lot of that has dried up. Currently, blockchain has primarily a market, say, in cryptocurrency speculation, which is basically something entirely different. It's about financing and the global finance system. Still, Trublo and Blomen, project before, and multiple others are still exploring how blockchain could be used for better management. Another example from another angle is a German company called Copytrack. They basically have a very far developed technology of comparing one photo to another. And they offer a service for photographers. And that is an interesting point. They are offering a service for the creatives, not for the large corporations, like the single creatives, that they will find stolen images and then enforce the copyrights from people using these pictures. So it's a way to avoid this free-floating, free use of content. And that is, again, another angle of getting to more trustable content if you know who used it, who created it, and whether it was ever paid for. Then with a big question mark, moving on to video, the technology that is by now available to create so-called deepfakes, like media content where it's really, really hard to understand or see that this is falsified. Like on the left, it's an example of Obama saying words which are spoken by an actor in the background with his voice. So you could let an important political figure let's say anything. It would be hard to find out whether it's right or wrong. And then face transplanting in digital videos, like changing from one speaker to the other and so on. This is a growing problem. It is pushed forward for the needs of, say, movies. And so it will evolve further. But it can be easily maliciously be used in news information distribution. Then another angle was discussed or mentioned briefly before, like what could there be a European angle to how we work on the internet? I would always argue, couldn't there be a global angle? Couldn't there be something where all of humanity can agree on certain rules on how we behave and how we treat others and get treated by others? And there is a notable initiative started by Tim Berners-Lee, companies called Inrupt. They already have a product called Solid. And the idea is here that we are kind of re-engineering the internet so that users can take control of their privacy. That I simplify the approach that my privacy data, whether it's my personal data, my financial data, my health data, is in kind of a private safe and can be shared on occasion for beneficial interaction for both sides, but is otherwise strictly belonging to me, and which is a very different approach to an enormous file that is stored without my or our knowledge on some other company's website, which is part of the current criticism. So a big topic in Trublo is distributed trust, and that is where we are getting to the research and technology challenge. Distributed trust, in essence, means that I don't have to trust the actors. I don't have to trust who am I dealing with, and don't even have to understand what motives there might be on the other side, or whether the other person is right or is truly represented at what it is. But I can trust the system. I can trust the system that it will weed out malicious users, and that it will identify dis and misinformation more easily. I'm not sure whether we get to 100% level, but if I would be logging into a certain environment and say block open other stuff that has no controls or whatever, I might be getting to a safer environment. At least that is the idea of this blockchain-based content management. And there's a researcher, Rachel Botsman. She is kind of exclusively working on trust and has written books about it. I follow her on LinkedIn. She has a newsletter, which I find really interesting. She has all kinds of approaches. For example, I'll give an example. Recently, she was talking about how to give a good apology. And that is interesting. You know, we are talking about this trust. What if we make a mistake? So all of our organizations, many of our organizations I know, are very, very fearful of making a mistake, but you know, they happen. So how do you apologize and regain the trust of somebody who you have disappointed before? Just as a brief note. Now, moving even further again, there is a marvelous game from Nicky Case. Nicky Case is kind of a multimedia developer, multimedia storyteller. He created a game called The Evolution of Trust. Maybe some of you, for some of you, it rings a bell. If not, I invite you to play it. Nicky Case, Evolution of Trust. It was very popular at the time. It's kind of a game theory display of why and how in a larger population there is a certain tendency that people behave right. And it tells you the story of the people that are never behaving right, always trying to take advantage of you, and the agents that might be switching between trustable and untrustable. And it shows very well the dynamics of the problem, the dynamics of the challenge when there are a lot of players in there. So I urge you or ask you to maybe spend these 30 minutes. It's very entertaining and very insightful. So this is, of course, on the TrueBlow agenda as well. So a little bit more specific on what we're going to do with the open calls. In total, over the next 3 years, we will have 3 open calls. The first one, as I said, starts on Monday, January 18th. The total funding that is available for that is 4.2 million euro. In the first call, which is open then for 6 weeks, we try to find 10 teams from proposals being handed in. We are collaborating with the F6S platform, and all the information, should anybody want and see that, is already uploaded to the TrueBlow website. There are documents describing how to participate, eligibility, and so on and so on. The idea is that we kind of speak and bond with quite a diverse range of people. We imagine that there might be academic researcher teams, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, who would like to create a platform, an application, a concept, a technical approach, and need some funding for that. It could be a startup, it could be SMEs and other companies. It just needs to be selected based on what ideas we can. You notice that I'm speaking a bit slower. I don't have an absolutely clear idea of the range of projects that will be coming in, but I'm really, really looking forward to this and the interactions that we can do based on these new networks. So I'm basically summing up with what I wanted to talk about tomorrow. Understanding the dynamics of information flow is the big challenge of the moment. How can one actor, be it somebody from the fringes or the US president, incite certain movements. How does that work? How can we moderate that? How can we avoid that in the worst of them? But I think in order to do that, we need not only look at physics and technology, but we need to understand the dynamics of communication. And this is more like the rules of biology, the rules of populations, the behavior of swarms, the preservation or destruction of ecological balance. And as you all know, these are challenges that we haven't solved on many other levels. So this is now coming to this field of communication. The second thing is that it was mentioned already, maybe we should try to move beyond our fixation with Silicon Valley models. Yes, they are the most successful, and I think they should be congratulated on being so successful. But it's kind of a monoculture of large companies with high risk and a lot of venture capital, and then very often winner takes it all models. This is the current rethinking, like how can we balance that better? And as my final note is, I strongly believe, based on my experience so far, the European diversity in both how our societies are different and aligned is an opportunity in this next phase for technology development. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm very open to questions, and I hope we have an ongoing fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Mirko. It's a fantastic presentation. For me, it's so much new information because in this field and in this topic, I just didn't see previously that much information, and for me, it's so much new things. And meanwhile, I just have this question because we see, and you presented lots of solutions to ensure correctness of media, right? How to ensure that the content shared is true, so to say. But I do believe that in normal circumstances, connection in between the technology, the users, and the media outlets of those solutions would be quite complicated, because that would add up lots of additional effort, for media outlets to really check and spend time on that and whatnot. But of course, as we spoke today, regulation could do miracles. So can we imagine that kind of situation where we would have this regulation that the media outlets would have to rank their articles in some ranking of information correctness by verification? If you open BBC, for example, or Deutsche Welle, you see this is correct to this level, that is correct to that level. So you can, if you read some exciting thing which happens, say in China, but it's like 1 out of 6, it's maybe happened, maybe not, who knows? So maybe it's just an interesting story from somewhere the depths of the internet and it's fake, maybe it's 6 out of 6, if you claim something, you put, this maximum number, so you are really liable for that information you have shared, and if somebody doesn't like that and that can argue that, you told lies, you can maybe be brought to court, in that case. So on one hand, it would really showcase the users, the readers, and they would have this, badge that this article is this much trustful, and this one is not that much trustful, and would really identify to ourselves where we have to think for ourselves, or where we have to follow and believe in some ways. But of course, that puts lots of more effort and standards for just everyone involved in such a process. So my question is, would you imagine such or similar thing happening in some time in the future? Or there would be some other easier and better avenues to reach similar results with technology we're having now and we will have in short-term, medium-term future?
I understand what you mean. I would initially see some arguments from people saying this is almost impossible, and you must understand that given the bad business models of most commercial media, there's always a tendency to go for the more outrageous. Mm-hmm. So the more clicks you have, the more money you make, and sometimes I would say there is I give a short answer. First of all, it needs to be understood that journalism is not homogeneous. There are groups that are really trying to get to official information, reliable information, and so on. But there are as well publishers that are going for Boulevard. And there's an interest in the market for Boulevard, and it won't go away just because we wish for it, and all of the information we're expending is the serious stuff. What I would recommend differently, coming from the data-driven journalism movement, which has been a bit more profiled a few years ago, is that data, real facts, become more scrutinized in general, like that we work with the sources and that we base our reporting less on opinion and more on actual data or data ranges, including communicating our unknown areas and insecurities. Because you always, very often in reporting, have these ranges of how something could evolve. So that is not a problem that is super easily solved, but I believe on the other side that quality media companies, whether they are public broadcasters like Deutsche Welle or commercial, that are gaining for quality, look at The Economist, look at the New York Times, and maybe the New York Times is a good example. I don't think everything that they report is absolutely accurate given the enormous amount of reporting that they do. But I think they have a good way to apologize and point out their own mistakes. They are striving for that, and that should go deeper to an extent. So that might be a way forward. So I don't want to be blocked too much other questions.
So I just wanted to real quick next question, just as a continuation. So what about whistleblowers, right? If they provide some information, some pictures, and if that information is in some ways verified. So if to verify that, you have to get some data about this person or about this occasion or about this activity. So how about that kind of challenges, for really disclosing publicly very important things which is going on in the various domains?
Well, I think one of the roles of media, a good media, is to control the powerful, like looking whether everything is done right. That applies to media as well. And what you just pointed out, a whistleblower, is the case of where you need to make a leap of faith at a certain point, whether you believe yes or no. By now, the instruments by consorted misinformation attacks could easily have a whistleblower that is planted just to create a situation. And if you look into the more deeper cases, a really successful case is constructed with multiple levels. So the idea is that even if I ask you a question to verify and another question to verify, you have answers for that. And it's sometimes the fifth layer where you find out it's all. There's a story by a German group. They faked an article about chocolate helping you to lose weight. And then they created a whole layer by layer by layer of believability and then checked whether it would travel the world, and it did. It was falsified entirely. And it shows a little bit about the mechanisms.
I see, thank you. I do believe that some other questions should be there because I see one camera open, so maybe Hayden has
Interestingly, I was sent on a media course by the European Commission to try and sell technologies to people in the future, and it was very interesting to get the TV perspective of this, which is actually from the German TV. And interestingly, they were very much sort of, okay, we have to dumb down everything so that the audience understands it. So you had to, there was a target demographic for how we were presenting the information. That's part of the problem. The other thing was that there's always an element of jeopardy in everything. We had to present everything to make it interesting so that people would actually tune into the information. And again, this sort of is a bit why you get these headlines in the newspapers, which are crazy headlines, which try and grab people's attention. So there's a bit of a demand for that, which is part of this. I think the other challenge is that the information they want is immediate. And so as a news story breaks, they want immediate information. So you probably won't have much time to actually go and check the facts on many of these things. And I think the challenge is you get people who put in the information very, very quickly before it's been verified. And that is something which for the newspapers, they have some time or they tend to have some time where they can actually check their background stories and check their sources. When it comes to live things which are happening, like the things which happened on Capitol Hill, there's all sorts of things coming out of that, and we're hearing more and more things coming out day by day. But what's true, what's not true, is very difficult to understand. And it's quite interesting the way a lot of this has been taken over by Twitter and things like that, and the fact that now we're having to ban Twitter accounts and things like that, which is raising some interesting questions about freedom of speech.
Absolutely. Now, you were mentioning quite a number of the problems. On the other side, some of them are going away. I just want to mention there is a movement started by the former executive of a Danish public media company. It's called constructive journalism. The idea is that they try to construct pieces that are bringing background, that are fact-check, so, you know, more informative, more like a Wikipedia entry. And Wikipedia is used quite a bit. And for example, I would argue that being the first to report something has not the value that it had in the model of Fleet Street newspapers coming from London, where quickness was a selling point. Today, you know, being the first is almost hardly impossible with Facebook and Twitter taking the headline away. So there is a movement and some opportunities in creating high-level, high-quality information, and that is a model. Say The Economist is doing very, very well financial-wise, as far as I know. New York Times has turned around. There's a big presentation of how they did that, which I recently saw, over 100 charts. So there is some options that this model might be changed.
Thank you. Any more questions? We are a little bit out of time now, we're 3 minutes over, but if anyone has a final short question, we can still seize this opportunity. Otherwise, many thanks for your presentations. They were all very awesome. I enjoyed them a lot and learned quite a bit, and I will bring this forward to my daily conversations and work, I guess, what I heard here. So once again, many thanks. And for all the participants, just a reminder, we'll share the slides with you because I do believe there's lots of things you will have a chance to look back in the future, because there's lots of things covered which are very exciting and worthwhile our attention. And thank you for a third time, and have a nice day, and see you sometime soon.
Thank you. We're working together.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.